The Everett mansion stood like a monument to a wealth so vast it was almost unimaginable. Grand crystal chandeliers imported from Italy hung like frozen, silent waterfalls from the high, vaulted ceilings. The floors were a gleaming, unbroken expanse of a cold white marble, and the tall floor-to-ceiling windows let the bright morning light pour in like a river of liquid gold. But behind the polished, perfect walls of this beautiful and very expensive prison lay a silent and very profound tragedy. 8-year-old Daniel Everett, the only son and the only heir to the vast fortune of the millionaire Richard Everett, had not spoken, had not laughed, and had not opened his beautiful blue eyes for over 3 long and very silent years. The doctors had given up. The specialists had given up. Even his own father, a man who had built an empire from nothing, had all but given up. But then a new maid, a quiet, unassuming black woman named Grace, arrived. Then she was about to do the impossible. Before we dive into this incredible story of hope and healing, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel, Beacon of Hope Stories. Your support helps us to share these stories that remind us of the goodness we still need in this world. The accident had happened on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. A car had skidded on a patch of black ice, a sharp metallic scream, and then a profound and very terrible stillness. Daniel's small, fragile body had been pulled from the twisted metal wreckage, alive but completely and utterly unresponsive. Since that one single, terrible day, his beautiful, sun-drenched bedroom had become a place of a quiet and very sterile despair. The soft, rhythmic humming of the medical monitors, the drawn, heavy curtains that blocked out the light, and the air thick with the heavy, unspoken weight of a desperate and now very faded hope. The world's best doctors, the ones who had been flown in on private jets, spoke in their careful, practiced, and very expensive tones, using words like persistent vegetative state. Richard, his father, had thrown his entire, vast fortune at every single possible treatment. The top neurologists from around the globe, the most advanced and most experimental therapies. All of it had failed. The little boy's bright, beautiful world had become one of silent and very lonely shadows, a world that was tended to by a long, rotating cast of the best and most highly paid private caretakers. They would come with their bright, professional smiles and their quiet, efficient movements. And then, one by one, they would leave, each one a little more defeated, a little more hopeless than the last. The mansion's own long-serving staff had learned, with a quiet and very sad resignation, to not even talk about Mr. Daniel anymore. It was like mentioning a ghost, a small, beautiful ghost, that still and silently haunted the grand and very empty halls. And then, one humid summer morning, Grace arrived. She was not what anyone in that house had expected. She didn't have the clipped, efficient tone of a nurse or the cool, mechanical politeness of a therapist. She just ... She carried herself with a quiet, unassuming dignity. Her dark, beautiful eyes calm, but also very, very alert. Richard had hired her, through an agency, purely for the household duties. Polish the floors, keep the grand, and now very unused, dining room impeccable, and dust the countless beautiful rooms that hadn't been touched or lived in. For months, Grace had learned of Daniel's condition from the hushed, sad whispers of the other staff in the kitchen. But unlike the others, she did not see him as a hopeless, tragic case. She did not see him as a ghost. One afternoon, while she was dusting the long, silent hallway just outside his room, she had, with a quiet and very deliberate purpose, stepped inside. The air in the room was cool, sterile, and almost completely and utterly lifeless. And Daniel, he lay there, a small, pale, and very still figure against the stark white sheets, his beautiful blonde hair falling over his forehead, his small chest rising and falling in the slow, steady, and seemingly endless rhythm of a deep and very profound sleep. Grace, with a quiet in very gentle movement, pulled up a small, simple chair and sat down beside his bed. "Hello, Daniel," she had said softly, as if she were speaking to a small and very tired child who might just be pretending to be asleep. "My name is Grace, and I'll be here from now on." Grace, true to her word, was there from then on. She began to visit Daniel every single day after she had finished her official and very demanding list of chores. She would read to him, her voice a low, gentle, and very beautiful sound in the quiet, sterile room. She would read him the classic and very magical stories from her own long-forgotten childhood. She would tell him about the weather, about the fat, happy squirrels she had seen in the garden, about the way the sun had felt on her own dark skin that afternoon. And she would hum the old simple lullabies her own mother used to sing to her, a soft, beautiful, and very loving sound. That was a stark and very profound contrast to the cold and very clinical beeping of the medical monitors. She would gently brush his long blonde hair. She would straighten his crisp white blankets. And every single morning she would place a single fresh flower she had picked herself from the estate's vast and very beautiful gardens, in a small, simple glass vase by his bedside. Weeks passed. To anyone else in that vast and very lonely house, nothing changed. But Grace, with her quiet and very patient and very observant eyes, she began to notice things. The small, almost imperceptible things, a faint, almost ghost-like twitch in his small, pale fingers when she had read a particularly funny part of a story, a tiny and very fleeting movement of his lips when she had hummed his favorite lullaby. She had mentioned it once to the mansion's head butler, an old and very proper man who had seen it all. And he had just sighed, a long, weary, and very sad sound, and had said, "Miss Grace, my dear, we have all thought we have seen signs before. It never lasts." But Grace, she was stubborn. One evening Richard came home early, heard the faint and very unfamiliar sound of humming coming from down the long, silent hallway, and he followed it. When he reached his son's open door, he stopped. Grace was sitting in the small chair beside his son's bed, holding the boy's limp, pale hand in both of her own. She was whispering softly to him. Richard just stared at her, a war of a deep and very real cynicism and a new and very fragile and very unwelcome spark of a hope now raging within him. He wanted to dismiss her words. He wanted to remind her with a cold and very brutal authority that he had spent millions and millions of dollars on the world's best, most highly paid specialists, and that they had all, every single one of them, given up. But something in the quiet, unshakable conviction in her beautiful, dark eyes, in the gentle and very real way she was holding his own son's hand, made him pause. From that day forward, Richard found himself stopping by his son's doorway more and more often, a silent and very conflicted observer, watching as Grace worked her quiet and very beautiful magic. He didn't say it aloud, but he, too, began to notice the same small and very miraculous changes she had seen. The faintest and most fleeting of flickers of a small pale eyelid, subtle but very real tightening of a small pale hand around. Hers, it was a Wednesday afternoon when it happened. Grace had just finished reading a chapter of The Little Prince, and she was setting the book aside when she felt it. A stronger and very deliberate squeeze of her hand. Her own breath caught. In her throat, his eyelids, which had been so still, so silent, for 3 long and very empty years, now fluttered. His lips, which had been so pale and so still, now parted, and a hoarse, broken, and very beautiful sound escaped. A whisper of a breath that had somehow, and with a great and very miraculous effort, formed itself into a single, solitary, and very perfect word. Grace's heart pounded. Tears, hot and immediate, blurred her vision. "Oh, Daniel." "Oh." And at that exact and very sacred moment, the sound of footsteps echoed in the long, silent hallway. Richard appeared in the doorway, his phone in his hand, in the middle of a text. And then he froze, the device slipping, with a soft and very final thud, from his now numb fingers as his own. Disbelieving eyes widened in a profound and very Absolute shock. Richard's expensive and very useless phone lay forgotten on the plush Persian carpet. Daniel's eyes, those pale, beautiful blue eyes that Richard had last seen open on the day of the accident. 3 long and very empty years ago, were fluttering, focusing, and finally finding the world again. The little boy blinked slowly, and the faintest, most beautiful ghost of a smile pulled at the corners of his lips. The sound, that one, simple and very perfect sound, was ragged, but it was his. Richard stumbled forward, nearly tripping over the expensive leather armchair, and dropped to his knees beside the bed. Grace, her own heart a thundering, triumphant drum in her chest, stepped back slightly. She had always believed that Daniel could come back. But to see it, to feel the heat, the life, the pure, unadulterated miracle of the moment, it was almost too much. She had done what she had come to do. But Richard, he turned to her. Then his own face, the face of a man who had not shown a single, genuine emotion in years, now completely and utterly broken. And those words, those simple, powerful, and very profound words, hit Richard with the force of a physical blow. For 3 long and very expensive years, he had thrown his money at the problem. He had bought the best machines, the best medicines, the best and most highly paid experts in the entire world, believing with a cold and very cynical certainty that love and faith and all of those other soft and very useless emotions were completely and utterly pointless without tangible and very scientific results. But now, the results, the only results that had ever truly mattered, were right here in front of him. And they were breathing, they were speaking, and they were looking back at him. Over the next few weeks, Daniel's recovery became the new and very beautiful heartbeat of the one silent mansion. Every single day he grew a little stronger, lifting his head, sitting up, smiling more and more often. Grace remained his anchor, his constant, patient, and very gentle guide, coaxing him through the simple and often very painful exercises, feeding him her own homemade soup, and telling him stories when the frustration of the slow and very difficult rehabilitation brought the hot, angry tears to his eyes. And Richard, for the very first time in his entire and very lonely life, stayed home more. He began to join Grace during Daniel's therapy sessions. Awkwardly at first, and then with a new and very profound and very beautiful devotion. He learned how to hold his own son steady as he took his first halting steps. He learned how to celebrate every single tiny and very precious milestone. The 3 of them, this strange and very unlikely trio, began to feel less like a grieving, broken family and a hired and very invisible maid, and more like something new, something whole. Grace's own eyes widened, and she was, for the first time, unsure of what to say. Months later, Daniel was running, a real and very beautiful and very joyful run across the green, sun-drenched lawn of the estate, chasing a bright, red kite, his happy, carefree laughter echoing through the once silent and now very happy halls. Richard was watching him from the terrace, his own chest tight with a father's profound and very real pride. And Grace, she was sitting beside him, sipping a cup of tea, for the first time in years. The Everett mansion was not just a house, it was a home. Because one woman, one quiet and very unassuming woman, had walked in, had seen a silent, sleeping boy, and had dared to believe in the impossible. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. For more emotional, dramatic, and unexpected tales from Beacon of Hope stories, and please, let us know in the comments. Where in the world are you watching from? We love hearing from all of you. Till next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep watching.